Hello friends, as we all are aware that the entire country is facing a pandemic situation. There are some states which are worst affected by this pandemic. Say for example Maharashtra, Gujarat, MP, Chhattisgarh. These are some of the worst affected, including Delhi. These are some of the worst affected geographies. So friends, generally what happens is when a person start developing these symptoms, say for example a fever or a headache or a body ache, they go for what is called as RTPCR testing. And generally a question lingers in everyone's mind as to how the technicians are able to detect whether a body contains coronavirus or not, just by the virtue of testing or just by taking swabs from the human body. This is a question which today I would like to answer in a very layman's language, just for your understanding. So first of all, what does RT-PCR stands for? RT-PCR is nothing but reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction. This is the full form. So what happens is when a person goes for testing, swabs are taken from the throat and nose of the person, and those swab samples are properly stored in test tubes. And when these samples are taken to the lab, the technicians, what they do is they extract RNA out of it. Now what is an RNA? RNA is nothing but ribonucleic acid. Every living organism, be it a virus or a human being, they either has a DNA or a RNA. Like say for example, human beings have DNA. Some viruses have either DNA or RNA. So in this case, they extract RNA from the swab samples and they have to convert RNA into a DNA. Now, if you ask me in a layman's language, what is the basic difference between a DNA and an RNA? If you even do a Google search and see the images, RNA is nothing but a single wave-like structure. You would see a wavery structure, and DNA consists of two strands basically. RNA consists of a single strand and DNA consists of two strands. It's a a continuous, a ring kind of a structure or a 8-like structure, a DNA, and RNA is nothing but a single strand, a wave-like structure. So the first process which happens is conversion of RNA, that is a single strand structure, to a DNA, which is a 2-strand structure or more than 1-strand structure. This is called as reverse transcription. So when you convert a RNA to a DNA, this is called as reverse transcription, and when you convert a DNA to a RNA, it is called as transcription. So in this process, what we do is at stage 1, we convert RNA to DNA, which is a reverse transcription process. Now the second part is, once you convert RNA to a DNA, you start amplifying that DNA. Now what is amplification? Amplification is nothing but you start adding cycles to it, or strands to it. So when you start adding different cycles to it, say for example addition of 1 cycle or 2 cycle or 3 cycles, there is a threshold point, or at one point in time you get to detect that virus in the DNA structure. So that point or that value is called as CT value. In reports, you must have seen, a CT value of 20 or a CT value of 25 or a 30. That is nothing but, number of cycles, taken to reach that threshold where the technician was able to detect coronavirus in the entire DNA structure. So, as per ICMR standards, if the number of cycles which are added to that structure as a part of amplification, if the number of cycles which are added, if it is more than 35, then it is assumed that it took very hard to detect that virus, or the virus was not detected, right? So the body doesn't have coronavirus. If it is between 30 to 35, that means if it takes around 30 to 35 different cycles to detect that virus, then the virus load in human body is very low. If it is below 30, then you can say that virus load in human body is significant. So CT value is nothing but it's a cycle threshold, as a full form, and it is nothing but the load of virus in the human body. So the lower the CT value, the less number of cycles it took to detect the virus, that means the load of the virus is very high in the human body. If the CT value is high, that is higher number of cycles it took to detect the virus in the human body, and that's the reason the load of the virus in human body is very low, because the virus was not easily detected. It took numerous cycles, to detect that virus. So it's a long story short, it's a two-stage process. First is conversion of RNA to a DNA, and then adding cycles, and reaching a threshold, where you are able to detect coronavirus. So in simple layman's language, this is RT-PCR testing. Just to give you one more example, if say for example, you put fruits in a machine, just to extract some juice. So in some cases you put fruits, 2-3 fruits in the machine. It's a manual machine, and you rotate that machine. In 2 or 3 cycles you are able to extract the juice out of that fruit if the fruit is softer. And in some cases where the fruit is harder, you take a lot many cycles, a 10 cycle or 15 cycle, before you see the juice coming out of it. So CT value is nothing but in a very layman's language, it is that basically. This is nothing but the RT-PCR testing. And the significance of this explanation is only there where you get a CT value or where the report is positive. In some cases where the report is negative, it doesn't mean that because the report also comes with a disclaimer, and nowadays there are many variants of virus, and even the tests are not able to catch some of the variants. So in some cases the report comes as the virus not detected. But even if the report is negative and you have symptoms, please take care of yourselves. Take steam, take good food, because food is the only thing which will be able to protect you from the virus attack. Take medicines, take multivitamins, and do take a good care of yourself. Thank you very much.